Highest to Lowest is a crime thriller where we follow David King, played by Denzel Washington. He's a music industry tycoon living the high life until his son is suddenly kidnapped and held for a hefty ransom. The situation seems pretty cut and dried, but when everyone finds out that something went horribly wrong with the kidnapping, David is left with a difficult choice that tests the very morals that he claims to live by. So this movie credits the novel King's Ransom as its source material, but this is obviously more of a contemporary take on the movie High and Low from Akira Kurosawa, which is also an adaptation of said novel. That movie was made following World War II, and each version has a couple different subjects built into them, so naturally things play out quite differently in this one. But it still keeps the primary subject, which is of course accountability. The story follows David as he goes about life fueled by his ideologies around being a leader and a family man, someone who will take the high road when push comes to shove. But when this kidnapping situation is turned on its head, his true colors start to show, and he either has to put his money where his mouth is or make the more self-serving play. This is all complicated by the fact that he is in the middle of making these big business deals with his record company, so the backdrop of greed sits behind him throughout everything. So David isn't just faced with the kidnapping dilemma. With the music industry evolving, he is also faced with business decisions that have large financial risks. It's a classic tale of industry versus artistry. He's torn between decisions that will either prioritize profits or preserve the integrity that he built his company off of by wanting to support young, talented artists. The movie walks that line pretty well. David is a total hotshot molded by hustle culture, but he's also a family man and a music lover. He has this dichotomy to him that his actions also tend to reflect. That obviously comes from having lived in two different worlds, the low working class world that he came from and the high life that he lives in now. And he relishes in it by creating a brand identity that plays on his last name, King. He likes to act like one, and the movie leans into that classic mythos of kings and gods among men. He's a huge public figure in the music industry, and the commoners are his disciples. Everyone knows who he is, striving young artists are always trying to get his attention, and people are much more willing to indulge and humor him because of his status. This movie paints a picture of class disparity. This is depicted through the large contrast between how David and his son are treated versus how his chauffeur Paul, played by Jeffrey Wright, and his son Kyle are treated. They all have comparable involvement in the conflict at hand, but the way that people treat each of them is clearly imbalanced. People show concern and sympathy to the people of status, but then they treat the lower status people like they are an inconvenience. While the second half of this movie definitely plays out more like a crime movie, delivering on what most people will expect from it, the first half leans more into the territory of family dramas. It focuses on these complex issues, some of them social issues, some of them interpersonal conflicts, and it's all very dialogue driven. Some of the dialogue scenes in this movie are where it really shines, especially these two very big ones at the end between David and this other character. The build up to them was really strong, and they did not take the easy way out. There's plenty of intrigue because these two scenes suggest that perhaps it won't play out exactly how we are expecting, and the energy between these two characters and the lines they're delivering back and forth is truly just electric. This is the exact type of role you want to see Denzel Washington in. He's not really doing anything new or revolutionary, but he does get to really lean into his strengths as an actor. David King is highly regarded, and you buy that with Denzel's ability to be all business. He's a family man with class, but he's also extremely charismatic and playful, which really gives us something to latch onto through the times where he comes off as a rich and greedy prick. He really shines when he, figuratively speaking, loosens up his tie and reminds people that he's not just an out-of-touch old-timer. He still has street smarts, and that's what makes him so magnetic. This is his fifth movie with director Spike Lee, and it proves that the two of them still have business making movies together. Jeffrey Wright's character Paul is the other big player here. He's David's chauffeur, but the two of them are like family. Paul is very much caught up in the crime, and he serves as a reminder of how people of lower status often get the short end of the stick. While I generally love Jeffrey Wright as an actor, I had mixed feelings about him in this role. I'm just saying, an entire movie's comedic irony was hinging on how jarring it is seeing him play a more hard-edged character. His performance here is fine overall, but he sometimes feels like he just wasn't the ideal casting choice for this character. So the movie is sort of a quasi-musical. There are several parts that put musical artists at center stage, but not flash mob style like a traditional musical. There are a few scenes that organically give the spotlight to musical artists, which is pretty fitting because there's a large focus on the music industry. There's a couple original songs from A$AP Rocky, who also plays a character in the movie, and they're pretty sweet. Though one of them felt pretty forced and almost like a music plug. So music very much belongs in this movie, which makes its biggest issue all the more noticeable, and that is how very bizarre the musical score is. It often sounds like a score that you would hear in a 2000s G-rated family movie. There were times where dark things were happening and conflicts were being discussed, and it just sounded like the Full House soundtrack was playing over top of it. There were a couple times where it worked. It made scenes that could have felt stale feel thought-provoking and soft. But the majority of the time, it just felt like the composer didn't understand the assignment. There were entire scenes that were handling very dark subject matter, and they ended up feeling very sappy and dated because of this. As petty as it sounds, that really is the biggest issue with this movie, which really is not unheard of for a Spike Lee movie. As for other criticisms, they're mostly just pretty small. It has editing hiccups, just jump cuts with tiny continuity errors, nothing crazy, but enough of them that it was a memorable thing coming out of the movie. It also would have been nice to see exactly how the kidnapping mix-up happened. There are ways that this could have been shown to us without sacrificing the intrigue of who was behind it all. And the ending felt like it ran just a tad bit long. It felt like it had some fat that needed to be trimmed off, especially in the very last scene. Assuming that you can tolerate other small things, like an occasional bad supporting actor or a foot chase that wasn't nearly as exciting as it wanted to be, then you'll probably be able to get into this movie. And it's definitely worth watching. So overall, I would call this movie pretty good. Its magnetic protagonist, compelling conflicts, and musical flair make it a pretty fun ride. Definitely check it out if slick energy paired with good storytelling sounds interesting. Just know that the music might not always set the stage properly. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of Honey Don't.